Folks, thanks so much for joining us. Very special guest, Josh Peck. And Josh, you I think co-wrote a book, correct on that? Correct me if I'm wrong.
With Tom Horn. This was back in 2016. We together we wrote a book called Abaddon Ascending.
Okay.
And it's all about what's going on at CERN and the stuff that we're going to be talking about today.
But Josh, what's the nexus of this book?
It's really just about explaining what happens at CERN in a way that people can understand, because a lot of times physicists and scientists, they have this other language, this other way of talking.
Sure.
Where, they sound really smart, and, of course they are smart, but I've always believed that, like, if you can't explain it to somebody in a way that, like, just anybody can understand,
I agree.
Then, that just excludes people. So because of that, there have been a lot of things that fly under the radar about CERN that people just don't know. Like, most people don't know how the Large Hadron Collider, which is the actual machine. CERN is just the governing body that decides what happens with the machine, and other experiments and stuff. But a lot of people don't know what they're actually doing, what advancements they've made, how the machine even works. And a lot of it's fascinating because the machine works only because what we think of as particles they're not little tiny pieces of matter like what we've been taught usually in high school science class. They're energy spikes in quantum fields, and fields are just kind of everywhere. Like the gravitational field is kind of everywhere. It's just some places it's stronger, some places it's weaker. Well, all fields are like that. And so the only way that the LHC can work is if that definition of reality is true, because otherwise it's not that they're smashing two particles together and then they're just seeing like what flies out of those particles. What happens is when that explosion happens, when contact is made, it sends energy into other quantum fields, possibly ones that we haven't discovered yet.
Wow.
And those energy spikes are particles. So they're trying to measure and see if they can discover any new particles that they haven't discovered yet. And probably the most famous one in recent memory was in 2012. They discovered the Higgs boson,
right?
Which that was
God
fascinating
particle.
too.
Yeah,
exactly. So that was fascinating too, because that showed us that mass isn't just like substance. It isn't just like how much substance a thing has. That's not mass. Mass is an interaction with the Higgs field. So that's how something like a photon, a particle of light, can be massless yet still exist. All it means is it does not interact with the Higgs field at all. That's also why Einstein said that if you travel, you can't ever get to the speed of light because your mass will increase. Well, the reason that your mass increases is because you're interacting more with the Higgs field. So it's fascinating to think about that, just the way that reality is put together. So that's some of the fascinating stuff and the stuff that's kind of cool. But then there's some darker stuff, like you brought up in the intro, about the Shiva statue. One thing that I want to answer right away. The question that you asked is if it was built on a ancient Roman city. It was. That's absolutely true. They actually had to stop construction of the LHC because they brought up these ruins. And it was this ancient Roman city called Apolliacum. And of course, they venerated Apollo there, and they actually believed that's where the bottomless pit was. So when you think about like the location that they chose for this big Large Hadron Collider, it's on the border of two different countries. And it's like, why would they do that?
Yeah.
Unless, was there a darker purpose behind that location where it was once believed that that's where the bottomless pit was located. Now look what they're doing.
Let me jump in here and because I'm going to play devil's advocate. I hate that line. I'm going to play angel advocate here. Let's switch that around. Is it possible? I mean, when you make a statement like that, immediately that's conspiracy theory, and I get that. So anything that goes against the official narrative and the fact checkers is conspiracy theory. But you raise a valid point. Why did they choose that particular area where it's between two countries? It's France and Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or
yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
And I've been there. I mean, I lectured at Tim Alberino, and I talked right where the statue of Shiva is. And then, of course, we're hopping around here. But then, of course, the ceremony with the guy in the goat skin and all that stuff, we'll get into that in a little bit. But why would they do something like that? I mean, surely they could have just put the whole thing in France and be done with it. Why do you think they chose that spot? Do you think it's deliberate? And if it is deliberate, angel advocate here, what proof can you offer that it was deliberate, that they chose that spot because of those ancient ruins?
Yeah, unfortunately, they haven't, as far as I can tell, they haven't come out with like a specific reason why that area. Because I guess even the area, it was really inconvenient for them to build it there. They could have picked a million different areas and it would have been fine. As far as proof, I asked the question: was there a darker purpose? Did they somehow know that in that area there was this ancient city, that there was this ancient belief that the bottomless pit was there? I can't offer proof, but I mean, it's a pretty big coincidence, if not, that they just happened to pick this really strange, inconvenient area, and then they found the ancient Roman city of Apolliacum, where they venerated Apollo and the bottomless pit and all this stuff. So, somebody could say that it's just conspiracy. Maybe it's just coincidence, but I don't know. It's a pretty big coincidence. And then, especially when you see all of the dark imagery that they constantly use, like the Shiva statue, there was a parody ritual of a ritualistic killing, a sacrifice a few years ago.
Let's delve into that. I mean, yeah. I went online and I looked at some of the stuff and we were kind of making a joke. Really? I mean, seriously, you're going to make a joke like that? I mean, that's not a joke. That's something, in my opinion, that is absolutely nuanced and deliberate. Your thoughts?
Yes. Absolutely, 100%, because nobody got fired for that. I mean, that gave CERN a really bad name for a while.
I know it did.
Bad.
And then everybody just forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly. If I was running a government agency or a company or something, and somebody did something like that on my property, I mean, I would absolutely fire them. I mean, that's what you do. But nobody got in trouble. No, as far as we know, no names got released or anything. I don't believe it was a real, sacrifice. I think it was a parody.
It was a mock sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. And but even in magic rituals and stuff, and we wrote about that in the book, they will use parody as a way to get some things done. So just because it was a parody doesn't mean it was a joke. They might have actually been trying to do something there with dark magic. And then, of course, there's the Shiva statue, which is the destroyer in Indian epics and stuff.
Yeah,
and
Hindu, right.
Shiva is like the destroyer and the creator of the universe. And so it's kind of fitting with some of the things that they're doing at CERN with some of their experiments, because there have been questions, well, could this create a black hole? How would you stop it if it did? And, that kind of stuff. And then just the way they talk about things, their science director, Sergio Bertolucci. Now, it has not been a secret. It's on CERN's website that one of the top things that they want to do with the LHC is to probe into higher dimensions and map them out. And Sergio Bertolucci, I have the quote in the book, he said something along the lines of, we don't know what's going to come through. Some unknown unknowns might come through and basically visit us and stuff. And I immediately think Revelation 9. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, is that on the website? Is it on that actual quote on the CERN website? Where did you get that from?
I don't know if the quote is still on the website. Back in 2016, it was. Okay. And so we put it in the book. People can Google it and find it, though. It's out there. But what is on the website, I believe it still is, unless they changed it after the past couple of years. But I don't believe they have, because the plans for using the LHC to probe into higher dimensions, that I believe is still up there. Actually, a report just came out a couple of days ago that I read on my YouTube channel, that they actually have evidence now of a fourth spatial dimension, because sometimes when they do these collisions, sometimes particles disappear. They're just gone. And there's been a lot of theories as to what that is. But one of the highest theories, and I guess if I'm understanding the article right, they did test this and they did, in a sense, prove that this was the case. The theory that these particles are escaping into higher dimensions, into a fourth or fifth spatial dimension. And apparently just now, just within the past week or two, they have more evidence leading to that conclusion that they are actually breaching higher dimensions now. And that reminds me of, the Tower of Babel. That reminds me of stuff like that. Revelation 9, the bottomless pit. I mean, all of this stuff is connected. And if CERN doesn't play some kind of role in the end times, I would be really surprised.
Well, let me ask you this. You talked about this ancient city that was dedicated to Apollo. They worshipped Apollo. And this is where the bottomless pit was located. Are there pictures of that? Was it uncovered? I mean, how do we know that the bottomless pit existed there?
Well, I think they thought of it as more of a spiritual place. There's a lot of pictures of the ruins and stuff that they dug up because they actually had to stop construction to let the archaeologists come in and dig up the city. But as far as the belief that that's where it was located, it was more of a spiritual thing. So it wasn't like, in places in South America, there will be like a cave and they'll say that that's the path to the dead or whatever.
Right.
I think it was just more of a spiritual belief that that location was the portal to the.
And just like in Israel with the Cave of Pan, I mean, that was, it doesn't go into the underworld, but maybe there's a gateway. Like, and I was at Amura Mora down in the border of Bolivia and Peru, and shamans are there constantly offerings, and there's like a gateway. We've got pictures of it. Brian Forrest and I are standing on either side of the gateway, allegedly. But we also have people that have seen the gate open and light beings come out of it. So, it's like if you have an anti-supernatural worldview, then everything that we're saying is just, you just flush that right down the circular commode, as it were. And this is why when the fact checkers, come up and say something like this, they immediately discount everything because they have a non-supernatural worldview, which is really unfortunate. And most of the scientific community, not all of it, have that same mindset, that same paradigm. It's a non-supernatural world. And yet we're hearing from the scientists at CERN that there's a higher dimension, which we don't know about. And that, in our opinion, in your worldview and my worldview, that ties right into the biblical prophetic narrative. And you quoted Revelation 9. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of their other plans too, and they've been talking about this for years too, is to create this kind of communication device. If they were to probe higher dimensions and if they got some sense that there was some intelligence there, they have a way of altering the spin of a line of particles to create like a binary code. And they want to send that through and then have the detectors on and see if anything comes back. I mean, that's just inviting in whatever exists in that realm. And based on Revelation 9, I think we do know what exists in realms like that. And it's just, to me, it just seems like another form of witchcraft. It's just hiding under technology. It's communicating with spirits. We're not supposed to be doing that. There's a lot of restrictions in the Bible on that for good reason, because they're destructive and they don't like us very much. But it's just using technology to do the same kind of witchcraft stuff, the same kind of sorcery, the same kind of stuff that they were probably doing at the Tower of Babel and other times like that. But yeah, Revelation 9 I think is really interesting because it's a big coincidence that CERN's built over a place where it was believed the bottomless pit existed. And I'm not saying that it does or it doesn't. I don't know where it is, but there is a bottomless pit. There is some kind of opening to it because we read about that in Revelation 9. And when that is opened, all these locust creatures, these fallen angel type beings, whatever they are, come pouring out of it. Well, what if the thing that initiates that whole process is us messing with these higher dimensions? And what if God's like, okay, hey, you want these false gods? You got them. Let's see how they're going to treat you. Just like with the whole Tower of Babel incident. Right. So I do think all of this stuff is connected.
So I just want to really drill in here and make it really clear that we're not stating this is where the bottomless pit is and that CERN is engaged in some sort of nefarious activity. We don't know. What we are saying is we find we're kind of taken aback by the fact that Shiva is at CERN, the destroyer, and I was there and I saw it and I asked the docent and he really had no answer, number one. Number two, we're not saying that this is the bottomless pit in Revelation 9, but it is interesting that this ancient city, which was dedicated to Apollo, was also the place of the bottomless pit, number two. Number three, we're not saying that CERN's going to open up a gateway or a portal, but if they're messing with another dimension, is it possible that that's what will happen? We just don't know. So, we're looking at all this and scratching our heads. And number four, why would you dedicate and have a ceremony with a mock occult ritual? Why would you do that unless you're sending out a signal? Josh, I'll give you the last word. Thanks so much for coming on the record. Great interview. Really appreciate it.